Welcome to the House of War. Today on Breaking Chains, we are joined by Jenn Amo, who is longtime war ambassador and founder of Warning Lights Ministry, which is a ministry especially designed to train our youth, our children, to know and avoid the fastest growing arm of crime, human trafficking. They are the number one target of the trafficker. And when I teach in an 8-hour day on trafficking, one of the single most important things we discuss is the 15 demographics, the 15 things that draw the eye of a trafficker to your community and to your children. And the number one demographic is cybercrime. And with the internet everywhere, students, even lower elementary students right now, are using the internet daily for classes now more than ever. Internet safety is the focus today of this conversation, ultimately, and it should be on all of our minds. Today, that's what we want to focus on. Jen, COVID has brought a lot of change to the way we do life, and schooling is probably one of the big changes and is no exception. And so today, what we want to talk about and just have you address is what tools do you recommend for parents and grandparents to use? And later, we'll talk about some practical ways that we can help protect our children. But what tools do you recommend that parents be aware of?
You're absolutely correct. The COVID-19 has immensely increased the level of risk for our kids, simply because there's so much activity online and people are at home trying to find ways to pass the time. Hands down, safety first. You know, internet, social media, anything that we're doing online is constantly changing. There's no one in the whole world that can ever be all knowing of everything that's going on. It's always changing. So many times people will ask me, well, why don't we shut down that app? Because 2 hours later, there'll be another one right in its place. It's not that we need to necessarily worry about. It's how do we educate our kids on what's safe and what's not safe. So as you were talking about the number one demographic, online activities for predators, just like with human trafficking cases, there is grooming that happens online. And that's what a lot of parents and grandparents don't actually understand. This isn't somebody that normally is a stranger that just reaches out and threatens your kids. This is a situation where they meet somebody online who acts like a friend, who says they are a friend of a friend, or honestly, is someone that they have met or think they know because they've seen their parents or grandparents talk to this person. That person could technically still be a stranger, but because they saw them interacting in their minds, it makes that person safer than what they actually should be.
So one of the things we know is that well over 90% of all traffickers are known to the victim.
Absolutely.
And we teach stranger danger, which of course we need to be afraid of strangers, but these children, our children, don't perceive this person as a stranger. And when you realize that over 90% of traffickers are not perceived as a stranger, there's somebody that child knows.
Yes.
Or thinks they know.
Yes.
It totally changes that.
Absolutely. One of the major tools that I love to give parents is the encouragement that it's okay to wait. Every child is different. I've got some parents that say to me, Jen, I gave this child a cell phone at 7, this one not till 17. And that's okay. You have to do what's best for your kids. Now, don't get me wrong. They're going to fight with you and argue with you because every other kid out there has a cell phone except for them, or every other kid can be on Instagram. It's not true at all. There's so many families that are protecting our kids wisely from social media, but it's okay to wait. Don't feel that pressure unless there's a necessary reason that you need to take that advancement, but there are safe ways to do that also.
One of the questions I get a lot is, when should you give your child a phone? And of course, as you said, it differs with each family and each kid. You may have 5 kids and 2 of them are different than the others. And I personally loved it that my daughter had a phone. But I had to teach her a phone is like a car. A car is a tool that can get you places, and it's also a weapon. It can kill people.
Yep.
And your phone and the computer are a tool that can save your life, and it can also take your life. And so we have to train our children that this is like being in a public park. This is not private property. This is like being in a mall where I need to have access. And there are some tools. We know that there's ways that, like Facebook, where you can have a child's messages or on their phone downloaded to your phone. So every message your child sends on their phone or their Facebook comes on your phone. So there are ways to do that.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, us old fogies have to learn those things.
Yeah.
But yes, I wanted my daughter to have a phone because I wanted her to be able to call me when she was in trouble.
Absolutely. So I guess the tools that I would give, is just understanding, which this sounds elementary, but honestly is once you open that door for your kids, it is the hardest thing to shut without arguments, without anger, without all of that. So once you open it, it is something that we want to take a minute, right? And say, how am I going to approach this? The number one tool I would, hands down, I believe this with my heart and soul, is that talking about the danger is how we save lives. People, when we talk about human trafficking, that's a term that is scary for a lot of people. But yet, if there is a campfire, we immediately tell our kids, don't touch that fire, it's hot. Why do we tell them that it's hot? Because it's going to burn you. We tell them about the danger to protect them. When it comes to human trafficking or online predators, same concept is so powerful. Talk to them. Open, honest communication about the danger that's out there. What's normal, what's not normal, what's safe, what's not safe. Because that communication is what will cue them in right away to what is, I need some help, or I'm in trouble, or this is not okay. I need to tell somebody. Discussion is the number one thing. Setting rules and boundaries. Is that time limits per day? How long do they spend on it? Just like with anything, all of us during COVID, I mean, I'm there too. I've been to some Netflix series I never even knew existed, but I found them and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to watch this. Spending more time has opened up for whatever's out there.
So we never hand our kids a key to a car and let them drive without having all kinds of rules.
Absolutely.
And yet
training.
The phone is no different, and yet we think it's safe, and it's not. The same diligence and vigilance that we apply to it when our children start driving is what we need to apply when they have a phone.
Absolutely. And we're talking specifically about phones, but and honestly, we're talking about devices, any device, tablet, computer, gaming system, whatever it is on top of phones. One thing that I would highly recommend as a tool for parents is setting up the atmosphere where I can check what you're doing and there's no reason for you to get upset. It's just how we stay safe. So a random check, if we set up that atmosphere right from the get-go that, hey, I will give you this, we're going to allow you to use this phone, but here's the rules. Here's what happens is anytime that I ask for it, you have to be willing to let me check on it. This is for your safety. And I'm a PK, you're a MK. We learned it all our lives. Like, I'm doing this for your own good, right? And this is what needs to be happening, blah, blah, blah. That same concept, I remember fighting it myself, being like, seriously, I'm such a good kid. Why don't you trust me? Honestly, it's not that they didn't trust me, and it's not that I don't trust those kids. It's that we know the predators that are out there looking for amazing kids to prey on. And that's the person that I don't trust. It's not kids. So setting up that atmosphere of, I might randomly check this, and that's just how we need to do it. That conversation.
Or even telling them, I'm going to check it every day. And then when you don't, and you only check it 3 times a week, wow, cool. But so much of leadership and even parenting is managing expectations. So saying, here's a choice. You can have a phone or you can't have a phone. You can have a computer or you can't have a computer. But if we give it to you, these are the rules, and make them super strict so that when you're not quite that strict, you're actually being lenient. But you're right. Letting them know ahead of time, not once there's a problem and then coming down on them.
Exactly.
But starting with the boundaries right away.
Yep, absolutely. And that's all part of discussion. I highly recommend all devices being turned in at night. I'm going to talk about some tools later that will help you control that a little bit.
Yeah.
But having that atmosphere that a lot of the cases that I deal with happen in the middle of the night while someone's got a phone in their bedroom. Parents didn't even know that they were awake. And, you know, the old nothing good happens after dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
That whole concept does fall into this online atmosphere. And so just maybe turning those in. Another tool is there's always new games, always new apps, always new excitement about something new coming out. As a parent or a grandparent or guardian, I would download that specific app and use it myself for at least a month prior to letting my kids have it. Simply because the people that create these apps, if they have ill intentions, and believe me, there are some apps that literally, I don't know what else they're for. They're like not safe.
Yeah.
But the first week, the first 2 weeks, oh man, they're the best. Weeks 3, 4, and beyond is when we start to see those inappropriate ads, those inappropriate options pop in. And it's built that way on purpose because parents after 1 or 2 weeks will be like, yeah, this is fine. Go ahead and use it. Mm-hmm. So a month is probably the safest recommended amount before you let your kids use it. Still letting them know.
Training them to know when that pops up, what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I always taught my kids that if something bad happens and you come and tell me, you're not in trouble.
Absolutely.
Because I would say if you grow up and be an axe murderer, I will still bring you cookies in jail. And letting them know that if something hideous, ugly, scary, questionable pops up, they can run to you and ask you about it, and they won't be in trouble.
Absolutely.
But that you will navigate that new experience with them.
Yeah, and in a warning light session, we talk about learning how to respond and not react.
Yes.
If you can take the time to respond to their question, you're going to be like floored. I can't believe this word or this whatever just came out of my child's mouth. Wow, where did they learn that? If you react, where did you hear that? Why are you asking me about this?
Yeah.
Who told you about this?
Yeah.
They're not going to feel comfortable to come say anything to you. We have to learn how to respond to say, okay, so let's talk about what this word is, open honesty, and this is why we don't use it, or this is why it's not okay. God would not want us to be using this word for this reason. Yeah. Responding to them, letting them know that.
And one of the hardest things to do is to help parents learn how to be that safe place.
Yeah.
The reality is every parent knows they're safe. They know it.
Yeah.
But if their child can't come to them with their worst nightmare without them going and reacting, they are not safe to that kid. That kid then will not come to them. So their child's perception is their reality.
Yeah.
And so how we react to the worst possible things is key, because that sets the stage for that kid knowing whether or not they can ever come to you. And you know what? And maybe in some families, as you're speaking, I'm sitting here growing hives, thinking, oh my word, if I had kids right now and I had to practice every app for a month before I let them do it,
Yeah.
I'd be like, forget it. We're going to go live on a deserted island.
Yep.
But I could easily look into my extended family and find one person. I'm thinking of somebody right now. Mm-hmm. I have a son-in-law who's amazing at that kind of stuff. And he could get on that and he could be my go-to, counselor.
Yeah.
And my go-to. Every extended family has somebody. Yep. Or somebody in your community, your civic group, your church, your work or whatever, where you could, if you don't have the energy to do that, because honestly, let's be honest, when you said you have to try out every app for a month, totally right, but I wouldn't do it.
Exactly.
I could not keep up with it. In fact, the state of Michigan has a woman that they pay full time to look for nefarious apps. Yep. And every month she has to redo her list. Every month she gives us an updated list, which is posted on our website, and anybody who wants to know how to find that, we can give them that. But she told me one time, Becky, I would have to hire 10-year-olds. And you're not allowed to hire 10-year-olds. Yeah. She said, because they're happening so fast, like you said, you can't keep up.
Yes.
So the app that looks like a calculator,
yes.
and every parent thinks their kids are doing their math, it is not a calculator. It is very, very nefarious. And the app that, lets kids bully anonymously. All these apps that we look at as parents and we have no clue what they are, these kids know about them. So even if you yourself can't do it, then you better get somebody in your circle of friends to do it for you.
Yes.
Because if you're not willing to teach your kid how to drive a car in snow, what do? We find somebody in the family, we've all done it, and we've said, hey, Nate, take Kenny over there to that parking lot and teach him how to drive on ice, right?
Right.
And spin out. So we need to get help. You're
Absolutely. Right. So I guess, in that line of conversation for parents, grandparents, whoever, there's 3 places that I go to that I honestly, if I'm not going to download it myself and try it out for a month, where can I search for this? The first one would be following warning lights on social media. I have a segment called What's Happening. Get it? It's so good, right? But I regularly will give updates on apps, that new ones that are coming out. I'm in high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, super often normally. So I'm hearing all about these. Hey, Jen, have you tried this one or have you seen this one? And I'll be like, no, but I'm going to look into it, right? And then I'll put something on my social media saying, hey, this is coming up the line. This is gaining popularity. Check it out. Safe, not safe, here's what we need to know. So you can follow warning lights. There's also Common Sense Media, which is an amazing site for apps, movies, games. They will give it a rating. They're going to tell you the pros. They're going to tell you the cons. They're going to tell you the age appropriate. They're going to tell you why it's not safe for that underage. So depending on families, right, it's always different.
Yeah.
This word is okay in this family. This word is a word we don't use in our family. However that goes for you, Common Sense Media is another one. And the third one are our great friends over at Protect Young Eyes. They do amazing work also at helping us recognize what's safe, what's not safe, what age might be appropriate for a certain app, through conversation, what we need to warn them about. If this happens while you're on this is what you need to do immediately. 3 great tools that people can use for sure.
I do think that as parents, we're kind of clueless with how early our children need to be exposed to things. People ask me, when should I tell them things? And I basically say the minute they stop being able to run around naked without their diaper on, when you start telling them to cover up, which is astounding to think that a 2-year-old toddler, because I was in a car speaking on the East Coast and I was with the mom. We were picking up her 5-year-old. Her 5-year-old was sitting, kindergarten, was sitting in the back seat of the car, and the mom's driving, and the 5-year-old's going, I am so sick of school. All they talk about is sex, sex, sex on the playground. And the mom's driving going, oh! And I'm going, breathe deep, keep listening. But this 5-year-old was sick of school because at 5, she was going to school and hearing kids talk dirty. And so I think we're just clueless as parents. So yes, we might think, oh, when they enter puberty, hello, you know what? It's a sacred trust. You get to do it whenever you want. But just know that if you don't do it, somebody is going to do it for you. And they're going to define that conversation. That was a wake-up call to that mommy that day.
Yeah.
Because her 5-year-old daughter in a private school, upper middle class community, father was a surgeon, mother was a social worker and a professor, all of a sudden she's like, oh my word, I have to deal with this at 5.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was when we were kids. And that's what's hard about it, because the generation gap used to be every 20 years was a generation gap. And now they say every 3 years. And that's because of the internet. And so when my daughter graduated from high school and started college, she felt like freshmen in high school were from Mars. When she graduated from college and went to grad school, she felt like freshmen in college who she was teaching were, like from another planet. 3 years. And already a generation change.
Yeah.
And so we're just not used to that, and we have to adjust, and we have to get people to help us and come around us. So you're right.
When trying to get into different places, as you know, with what we speak on, what we talk about, there's some audience that say, I don't think that's appropriate for us. You know, and I respect that and I understand that. But when it comes to human trafficking or, you know, online predators, your kids are going to learn it one way or another, and they learn it way before you realize. And I tell people, I'd much rather have them learn in love than to learn from the outside, right? Like, because it's hard, it's awkward, it's not an easy conversation that we sit there and have. However, if we teach them what's right and wrong from the standpoint that we stand firm on, then they will ask you questions when they hear from the world. Well, they're telling me this. That's when they'll start that amazing conversation with you where you can really feel like, okay, let me dive in, because now they're coming to you saying, how come they're saying this, but we do this? I don't understand. Why is this not right for us, but everyone else is doing it? That's your open door right there. But if you start that conversation, then they feel comfortable to come and follow up. If we don't talk about it, they feel that if they bring it up, they're doing something wrong, like you had alluded to earlier. So we're only preempting and creating that safe space to help them understand that, hey, I can ask about this because I remember my mom or my dad or grandma or grandpa talking to me about this. And so I know they know about it already. So let me just go ask them what this means. It's a huge benefit, a huge tool, conversation.
Rhoda Kershaw, who's one of our survivors, who was raised in a Christian home, went to a Christian school, wasn't allowed to watch TV because they wanted to keep her innocent, said to me, Becky, when you speak to conservative communities or moms and dads, because we all want to, I don't care who we are, I don't care what our faith background is, we all want to protect. Good parents want to protect. That's our job. She said, tell them to raise their children to be wise as serpents, not dumb as doves. She fell into the sewer because she didn't even know. And so she's so adamant about that. And sometimes as a family, you may not be comfortable having that conversation. You know, in Asia, where I grew up as an American, I was often asked by my Asian girlfriends to have the sex talk with their daughters because it wasn't appropriate for them. And I learned from that because I remember raising my kids later in life when we moved back to the States and they were in their teen years. And if I said it, it was like mom said it, whatever, eyes roll in their head, right? And they were good kids. But I would call my dad up and I would say, you and mom are coming over for dinner Sunday, and this is the subject you're going to discuss. And so I would call that person that I knew on that subject they would respect. And so then they'd be like, oh, wow, Grandpa's so smart. And I think, I said the same thing. But so pull someone in. Pull in. That's why we offer this program, because we are careful that we don't do disgusting things and say disgusting things. And we try to speak in an age-appropriate way. We try to be honest and real, because trust me, kids know way more than their parents.
You cannot
the kids know everything, actually. And when I speak to kids and their parents are in the room, I tell them, tonight when you go home, you're going to have to pat your mom and dad and tuck them in bed because they're going to be freaked out. They're deer in the headlights. You're going, yeah, I hear that in school every day. But our kids, unfortunately, are exposed to it. So maybe if you can't have that conversation and you don't want to, bring in that family member that's trusted, or that service that some local nonprofit or like Warning Lights or any of these opportunities, bring them in, because sometimes kids just have to hear it from somebody other than their parents, and that's okay. Bring those people in, invite them to dinner and say, I'm inviting you to have this conversation, or create that opportunity.
Yes. One of my favorite experiences since starting the Warning Lights ministry was I had a mom say, hey, Jen, my daughter's leaving for college next year. Do you do sleepovers? I was like, yeah. She said, I'm going to have her invite friends, 12 senior girls from a local high school. I showed up with pajama pants, my t-shirt, my hair up in my bun. You know, we had pizza and pop, and I was there for about 4 hours just talking about anything and everything, open conversation, to let them know, as whether they were going to a private college or, you know, state school, wherever it was, there was so many things that they just didn't feel comfortable talking about that we chatted about for a long time. And that's honestly one of my favorite experiences so far, because it was so real and they felt so protected. And a lot of those young ladies still reach out to me today and say, hey, I was at school and I saw this. Remember how we talked about that you said this might happen? Jen, I recognized it and I left right away, or I got out of there. And I just wanted you to know that it did actually come true. You don't make stuff up. And that's the thing, is that, you know, when we are educating people, the stories that we share, we want to use real stories because we don't have to make this up. That's how prevalent it is.
Unfortunately, we have thousands of illustrations.
Absolutely. And that is sad, but it is powerful too, because that's what they realize and that's what they take away.
Well, one of the things that has come to my attention that I think of often is the whole idea of the computer. You talked about their phones being in their bedroom. And I think, you know, if I had children today, little ones, I would not allow them to have computers in their rooms, because one of the things we've learned is that when you have Skype or you have that camera in your computer, the predator can get inside your computer and leave it on even after you've turned your computer off. And so there is a new evil that's called sextortion. And so your daughter is changing for bed or taking a shower, changing her clothes, and that predator's taking pictures of that. And then he's showing it to her going, look, you naughty little girl, look what you did. And she's like, I didn't do that. And he's like, you can't deny it's you. And she can't. And then he's like, you have to do this for me, or I'm going to send this to all your friends on Facebook. And so they extort them to do more because they terrify them. And so then the kid gets kind of trapped because now they feel like they're complicit in it. And so I know Bill Gates said that you should put a sticky pad, or you should, you know, I think he puts his, someone said, in a freezer, for Pete's sake. But that camera that we think is off, when I was on the East Coast, there was an announcement on the news that somebody's entire bank account was wiped out because someone saw all their bank statements laid out, and they were in the computer looking at that. And so those are things that, you know, we just can't fathom. We don't have that kind of expertise. It would never occur to us that that would happen. And so, yes, that camera that's on the computer shouldn't be in a place where anything you're doing can't be seen by the world. And we know that over 50% of victims are children. And we at WAR have been involved in rescues of children as young as 2 weeks old, 6 months old, 6 days old. And so this is a darkness that we have to wake up and smell the sewer. And so I appreciate the resources you offer, and in schools the ask, and just different, I know you have different levels that you do depending on what age group it is, and making this subject as tasteful as you can and yet real, because if you're not real with kids, they're like checked out. They know more than you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Facebook, let's talk a little bit about that. It has a messenger for kids, and one of my staff told me that a parent can have an app on her phone, like I mentioned, that shows the conversations that are happening. And it actually populates on her phone. So that she sees everything her kid is saying, and her kid knows that, and she approves their friends.
So that's actually on my list of tools if we're going to start going to those things. A lot of parents during this time have been messaging me, Jen, what can I give my kids? They want to chat with their friends. They want to do this. They want to stay in touch. What's the safest way? Right now, I mean, we know nothing's ever 100% safe, right? We always have to have our awareness guard up. However, the Facebook Messenger for kids right now is the safest chatting avenue for them. I actually use it with my niece and nephew. You can video chat, but my sister had to approve every person that is on their account. She sees when we call them. She sees when we text them. She sees when they text us back. There's also little fun games where my niece will draw something and it says, Auntie Jen, can you guess what I draw or drew? And so there's little things that they can do with that too, which is really fun. So hands down, Facebook Messenger right now is the safest option for kids of any age to chat with friends and to stay in touch, because you do have control and you do have access to that. And you can stop anything at any time if necessary as a parent. And a child cannot have it unless it's through a parent's actual account. So this isn't something that your child can sign up for without you. So that's also what makes it extra safe. Yes.
Yeah, what other practical ideas would you have? Like, our children need a lifeline. And so they need that person they can call or text. And I remember some friends of ours, when their kids were young, they would send their parents a message that said, we want to have a pizza party. They'd be at a party that the parents had vetted, and then something would go kind of wonky there, and they'd be like, we want out of here. And they were boys, and they weren't going to call mommy and go, I'm scared, come get me. But they would text their parents, we want to come home for pizza. And that was code for, get over here, get us right now, get us out of here, and order the pizza so that we really come and have pizza so we don't look like idiots.
Yeah.
I know I've rewarded when I speak at our civilian first responder trainings. I tell parents, if you come up here right now with your kid and you tell me that you just created a code word, I don't care if it's asparagus, I don't care if it's Bugs Bunny, I don't care if it's an X. If you come up here right now, I will give you a $5 gift card to the cafe or the war store, because I want kids to have that. They'll roll their eyes in their head thinking, I won't need that. But then when the day comes that they're at that sleepover, you know, the Shauna Newell, who went to a sleepover at age 14 and was sold for $300,000 on the internet and attacked by, you know, dozens, that day will come. And they need to know who they can call. And maybe it's some family member who says, I will be the grandma who gets up in the middle of the night. I will come get you, no questions asked. Because if you grill the kid, they'll never come back. I have an adult friend who has a lifeline to her husband. If she's out and she sends him a blurb, there's this way you can do this on your phone. And even if the trafficker or somebody turns her phone off, if he doesn't get a response in so many seconds, he knows something's wrong. And so even adults, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, we're talking about safe people. And this is one thing I want to just touch on, because this is a hard thing for a lot of parents. But for some kids, a parent is not going to be their safe person. And that's okay. You know, I tell students, you need to have a safe person, but this is a conversation that you have with your parents, probably there, but whether it's an aunt, whether it's a friend of your mom, somebody, an adult that you, a trust, someone that you know that you can trust, that will not expect anything in return if you reach out to them. And parents are like, why would they trust them more than me? You know, when a bottom line, we just want them to have somebody that they feel they can reach out to, because their safety is our number one priority. So not for everyone is that going to be that parent, right? I had the same situation. I had a student that their code is, I forgot to feed the dog. In all honesty, they don't have a dog. But when she texted and say, I forgot to feed the dog, that cues everyone in, like something is going on, we need to get her. And they have a family text that she would put that out on, and whoever's available, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, mom, dad, who will say, oh, you didn't? Well, you need to come home right now. And they respond with, you need to come home right now, so that when they come to pick her up, it looks like they are the people that are instigating this to protect her from getting chastised by the friends, right? Who are going to be like, oh, you can't handle this, you got to get some help, or you want to go home. Because believe me, we talked about the bullying, we talked about that. There's so much that our kids are dealing with that we just don't even understand or comprehend a lot of times. But that is legit, and that does save them from anything that you could imagine. It doesn't have to be drugs, alcohol, sex, anything else going on. It could be a movie that they feel inappropriate is inappropriate, that makes them uncomfortable. It could be that some friend showed up that they don't know and they don't feel comfortable with that person around. I don't care what it is.
Or they're witnessing bullying and they just want out of there.
Absolutely.
And they want, I think if the simpler you make it, then and the less dramatic, then the kid knows, you know what, if I'm uncomfortable for any reason, I have an out.
Absolutely.
And they know that somebody will come get them.
Yep. Yep.
And I have learned from decades of working with wounded people, and especially children, that they know when what is being done to them is wrong.
Absolutely. I do want to just touch on a couple of other ways to stay safe here. What maybe everybody doesn't know is any device, any phone, any device, any gaming system, they all come with parental controls. Use them. When you're setting that system up, take the extra time to set up those controls. It's going to be way beneficial for the time that you put in at the beginning to help protect at the end. There's also filters, ways that we can stay safe. There's a lot of them. And actually, in May, I posted a few articles about ones that I would recommend or that I suggest. But there's one called Bark. And Bark is like a parent control app that you have a lot of opportunity to sign visitors, kids, friends onto your Wi-Fi, and then you can control their phones too. So if 9 p.m. is bedtime, you can actually use the app to turn off everybody's phones, even though I think that they should be turned in. If somebody has a second one that they're hiding, you never know, you have control of that. I would recommend Bark. There's Net Nanny, there's Kid Logger, there's Kaspersky Safe Kids. Great options. If you don't have one, they are a must in today's age. You really need to get one. The final thing I just wanted to say is that, as we talk about this and you're building up, again, through this whole thing, communication is so huge. But if you don't necessarily feel comfortable, I don't know how many times it's worked out to where parents have brought their kids to a warning light session. Let me do the chatting to open up that door of communication. And then from there on out, parents, students, anyone is able to reach out and say, hey, we're thinking about this app. What do you know about it? And I will respond anytime, anywhere to help protect, to give information. So don't be afraid to use us as a resource also.
The good news to all of this is that training really works. Conversation really works. Awareness really works. A mom attended a CFR, and a year later her daughter disappeared. And she knew what to do. She made some phone calls, eventually called us, and her daughter was rescued in an FBI police raid. So we know as parents we need tools. It's weird to go home and sit your kids down and say, today we're going to talk about sex trafficking. They're going to be like, Mom, you're weird. But one of the things we love to do is give people tools like warning lights, or even like the book Sold we have here that, it's written for preteens, so it's like a 5th, 6th grade level, and you and I could read it in an hour, but it starts a conversation, because just to jump into that conversation with our kids is awkward. And another thing is, simple things like I collect coins with my grandchildren, and it gives me the opportunity to talk about, orphans and children who don't have protectors, and then children who have families that don't know how to protect them, and just talk about it simply like that. And just talking about human trafficking to little people like it's bullying. They understand bullying.
Yeah.
And really, trafficking, pornography, all of those things are somebody's taking pleasure in someone else's pain. And that's what trafficking is. So even if it's something as, rolling coins, I do that with my grandsons, and then I take them to the dollar store and they get to have 2 of the dollars and the rest go to, feeding orphans or something. And so the good news is, yes, it's scary, but we all have people in our lives. We have resources as an organization that we offer, and we have people in our lives who can set things up with those. I would not know how to set those apps up or games up, but I would call that member of the family who's, super techie, because we all have one, and they would figure it out.
Sure.
So I just want to thank everybody for joining us, and I want you to be sure to click the like button on your YouTube and share and comment below on Facebook that you shared the video to be entered to win this week's giveaway. And this week's giveaway is this book good pictures, bad pictures. And I rarely recommend books, but this is a very practical, down-to-earth way to have a conversation with your children about what constitutes good and what constitutes bad. And as simple as good is you're at the beach with your family wearing swimsuits, bad is there's no swimsuit. And so it's just very concrete and practical and down to earth. And it's just a great book that we offer. Moms and dads and families and communities, we are fiercely protective. And we are wired to be that nurturing circle of protection to those we love. And so we just have to come up with very practical ways to do it. So from our house to your house, from our lives to your baby's lives and into your lives, we are determined to be that safe place for you because this means war.